Natasha,
Debbie,
show.
the show.
Welcome to it. Just two patriotic girls.
Learning about the world.
So please, don't take us the wrong way.
It is often asked, thank you for asking yet again, who, Natasha, is your favorite band next to Queen, after Queen? Because that's Queen, right? The answer is staring you in the face.
Well, now that we have that answer, welcome to the Natasha and Debbie show.
Sorry. My first concert was Page and Plant for the No Border Tour in '95.
Pretty awesome concert to get to go to.
This is not why we're here today.
No, it isn't.
Nope. Anyway, we're hoping that you're here because you want to be. Well, that'd be weird if you weren't. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be weird? What if you were here if you didn't want to be? What does that even mean?
I know. I'm like, how would they be here if they didn't want to be?
I don't know, maybe you're held hostage somewhere. They're using Natasha and Debbie show as
Forcing you to
torture
watch us?
tactics in certain places. That would suck. So if you're not here for torture purposes, we'd appreciate it if you let us know, blink twice, and hit the like button.
And also consider subscribing. It's absolutely free.
Weirdest
Where did that
intro
came from?
in the history of our channel. It's August 2024, if you didn't know, because you could be under a bunker somewhere being forced to watch this, so now we know. No, but seriously, in all seriousness, August 8th of this month will be 3 years, and that's insane, since we started our very first episode of the Natasha and Debbie show. Another thing to hit the like button for, and subscribe for.
That 3 years have gone by fast.
And also not.
And also,
So today's episode is something I'm really pumped about. What is it?
we are going to watch the origin of every English city's name.
I want to know how many of the cities I don't know. Like, how many have I not heard? I'm curious.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, like, I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go.
We don't know what we don't know.
No, but I'm really excited about it. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And I hope this is a video we can all learn together on. It's not just us. But I think there's going to be a lot of information.
I'm pretty sure it will be.
And because of that, we're going to get going right now.
Right, the origin of every English city's name. There are 55 of them. It's quite a lot. So let's get cracking. Welcome to another Rob Words. First
First time
quick
seeing his
context.
stuff.
England's place names are a product of England's history. They've been influenced by, in order, the Celtic Britons who were around from the Iron Age, the Romans who spent a few centuries there, the Anglo-Saxons who came after them, the Vikings who took control of a massive chunk of England, and then William the Conqueror's Normans. Throw in some Christianity and a millennium of lazy pronunciation and mishearings, and you get to the place names we have today.
Okay.
Now, we're just going to look at the cities because we'd be here all day otherwise. Contrary to popular belief, there are no specific criteria for a place in England to be designated a city.
We
It
learned
is
that recently.
just that at some point, the monarch has to have decided that it is. None of this, it has to have a cathedral or a university nonsense. That's why they're of all shapes and sizes. So with which city do we start? Well,
Bristol.
how about the city of London? Because
Obviously.
not only is London our nation's capital, but it is also potentially
London
one of
something.
the oldest
Londoninium?
and most mysterious place names that we have. The earliest known name for London is what the Romans called it, Londinium, but
I was
we
close.
have no idea what that means
Really?
or where it came from. Romans liked to adapt the existing names of places rather than come up with new ones, but historians haven't been able to make any Celtic
Really?
words
Did you know
fit.
that?
Could it be from this, meaning marsh with a fort? Nope, there's no evidence of a fort. Could it be from this, meaning fast-flowing river? Maybe, but it's a bit of a leap, isn't it?
Yeah.
So historians think the name could come from even before the Celts, from a language we know nothing about.
Which is?
Wow, that's great, but now I have to give you one that we can explain, don't I? So let's go with the presidential sounding Lincoln, a city whose cathedral was once the tallest structure in the entire world.
Wow.
Its name is a Celtic-Roman hybrid. The Celts named it Lindon, no relation to London, using their word for pool, and the Romans called it Lindum Colonia after they built a colonia there, a kind of retirement village for soldiers. Through a few centuries of laziness and mumbling, you get from that to Lincoln. One of the theories behind how
I don't see how you get there, but okay.
Some laziness.
Okay. I'm good at that. I can name all kinds of places.
I can shorten a lot of words to come up with something else.
Debbie's really good at that. It's a superpower you have now.
Yeah.
It is.
Colchester got its name is from one of those Roman colonia stuffed with ex-legionaries. It looks like it's named after the river Colne, which in turn might be named after a colonia, although some historians reckon that Colne is actually Celtic because it pops up in other names in other parts of the country. Now, the Chester in Colchester is the bit we really need to talk about because the story behind it is surprisingly surprising. At first glance, it seems simple. The Romans built a fort there and their word for fortification was castrum. So, they slammed that on the end of the name. Easy.
Okay.
But nope. Yes, the Chester comes from the Latin for fort, but the Romans did not put it there. It was the Anglo-Saxons who put the Chester in Colchester to say, hey, that's where the Romans were. And the same goes for every Chester, Castor and Cester in the country. So let's tick off some more cities. You've got Chichester, which is probably named after an Anglo-Saxon called Cissa. Winchester, with the win, thought to come from a Celtic word for a meeting place.
This is how he's going to make the video faster.
Winter by the Romans. Manchester is potentially named after a breast-shaped hill, meaning it's...
Okay.
I want to go to Manchester now. How large is this? Breast.
It's a double D.
Hill. It's a double D. Not big
Sorry.
enough. What's the peak like on the hill? Is it a stiff peak or a... Is it an old hill? That's just getting weird. Is it sloping? Is it sagging? Has it still got good years left in it? What are we talking about now?
So not right.
Manchester. If you've just joined our video, we're not talking about anything except for this...
Manchester.
Manchester. Get your minds out of the gutter, people.
It's related to the words mammal and mama rather than man.
Mammal, mama, breast-shaped hill. Manchester. Oh my. Sorry.
The Romans called it Mancunium, hence the locals are still called Mancunians. And then there's Chester,
okay, I didn't understand
which
that.
is frankly just cheating. It was a Roman fort like the rest of them, but has resisted attempts to differentiate it with
We are
something
Chester and we're
extra
staying that
at
way.
the start. The names Lega Chester, Legion Chester, and West Chester.
We have a Westchester here in Ohio, and then there's one in New York that's really a big deal too. We probably stole that. Okay, we did. We know we did.
Failed to stick. Etymologically identical to the Chesters are the Casters. Lancaster was the fort by the river Lune, in turn thought to come from a word meaning healthy or pure. Doncaster is at the river Don. Don is just a Celtic word for river, so it's literally the river, as are the various river Avons, also Celtic, and river Ouzes. Exeter is another caster on a river, which used to be this mouthful before it passed through the laziness filter. It's named after the river Exe, which again probably just means river, specifically a river replete with fish. More on rivers to come, and also bridges, because there is a lot of crossover, pun intended. But first, the final Roman forts, the cestas, not a single one of which is pronounced like it's spelt. We do it to confuse tourists. Cirencester stays true to its roots, but it is not a city, so we're not interested. But we are interested in Leicester. It's named after a Celtic tribe, and to the Anglo-Saxons was Ligere Ceastre. You can actually see a version of that on this super old map. But bit by bit, we shed those tiresome syllables, in pronunciation anyway. Speech didn't match spelling because, most people couldn't read. To the west, saucy little Worcester is named after the Weagora tribe, and the southern city of Gloucester was the fort at Glaive, thought to maybe come from a Celtic word for glow. So with all those cesters, casters and chesters, the Anglo-Saxons gave a nod to the Romans who'd come before them. But almost everywhere else they named or renamed using their own language, Old English. And they are responsible for the vast majority of the place names that we have today. Among them, Norwich, which is the North Wich, wich being an Anglo-Saxon word for a settlement or village. It gives us the Wick place names too. The northernness of Norwich is likely in comparison to their fellow East Anglians down in Ipswich, which isn't
Tell them what you say, what you call Ipswich.
Ipswich.
No, you don't.
Ipswich.
That's not what you said earlier.
What did I say earlier? Because I'll change it every
I don't
time.
know. You did change it a bunch of times. We were on Facebook Live earlier, and we were. I don't know why I was talking about Ipswich. Oh, I said I want to do a travel video. I want to see it because we have it. And then Debbie kept saying some weird name. It wasn't Ipswich. Ipsips. Ipsips.
Ipsips.
Ipsips. Debbie now wants everyone in Ipswich to be now known as the Ipsips peoples.
Yep, the Ipsips.
Yeah.
It's more fun, I think.
I like Ipswich. Sorry, guys.
Likely in comparison
fun
to
too.
their fellow East Anglians down in Ipswich, which isn't a city, and I bet they're a bit annoyed about it. East Anglia is, of course, so called because the Angles were there.
Well, that
Another
makes sense.
Anglo-Saxon pairing are Northampton and Southampton, but this time it is the southern settlement that is actually a city. Southampton was originally actually another witch, but it changed from Hamwich to Hamtun. In this case, the ham bit comes from the Old English for an enclosure, probably the same root as when we say something is hemmed in fact. We'll talk about a different Anglo-Saxon ham a bit later. But anyway, the tun, or tun, refers to a farmstead or village. Eventually it becomes our word town. Up in West Yorkshire, Wakefield shows off another Anglo-Saxon suffix.
Hi, Brett.
Field meant, we'll have a guess. Yes, field. And Wake was a kind of medieval village festival. So despite sounding somewhat funereal, Wakefield is actually a fun, festive name related to
Well, that's
fairs.
cool.
Another city with an Anglo-Saxon name is Stoke-on-Trent. The River Trent is just referenced to differentiate it from various other Stokes. Stoke coming from the Old English for outlying farm or settlement. The same word also gives us the place names ending with stock. Now, I said we'd cross this bridge when we got to it, and that is the Bridge, because Cambridge is so called because there was a river crossing there. It was originally called Granter Bridge because it was on the River Granter. However, it appears that the Normans struggled to pronounce that with their fancy French mouths, so it morphed into Cambridge or Cambridge. And then, rather ridiculously, the name of the river was changed to fit. So the river running through Cambridge is now called the Cam, although at some other points it is still the Granter. Cambridge's university rivals in Oxford can also pin their place name on a passing river. Ford is a really common Anglo-Saxon suffix, meaning, well, ford. It's a place where you can get across a river, often because it's shallow enough. Oxford is where you could easily lead oxen over the river.
Really?
Near the Welsh border, Hereford means...
That's cool. We have an Oxford in Ohio too. You know, we have like a lot of places in the UK named that over here.
We do.
But
means place where an army can cross, this time over the River Wye. Then a cross in Essex, so called because it was the Eastern Kingdom.
Hold on. How do you even pronounce that one? Never seen this one. First one on the list I haven't seen. I don't know. Kelmsford?
I'm hoping he's going to say it.
I'm going to say Kelmsford.
Okay.
What are you going to say?
I'm going to go with you.
It's not fair, Debbie.
I would say Chelmsford.
You might be right.
Of the Saxons,
Say
you
it.
find Chelmsford. It's thought to be named after a fella called Cholmer or Colmer, who also gave his name to the River Chelmer, which you can ford there. And then back up in Yorkshire, Bradford.
I'm going to start saying, let's go forward that river. And no one will know what I'm saying. See, I just learned something really... You're going to forget too. You'll be like, what are you talking about?
I'm like, you want me to do what?
Let's go forward the river. Do you actually say that? Or is that just like an old thing, like he's saying? No, I want to start saying that. Let's go forward the river.
Okay.
I don't think we have any rivers that are actually fordable.
Oh.
That was like borderline funny and it just was stupid.
That was, it really fell.
It fell down hard.
It did not cross over.
Simply means broad ford. There's one more ford city left, and that is Salford. The sol or sal bit comes from the sallow trees, which are in abundance there. They are a type of willow and also immortalised in the names Sale, Sellafield and Selborne, among others. Salford ain't the only city to be named after a tree. The tree at the end of Coventry means just that. Tree. It's reckoned that the rest of the name comes from whoever owned that tree. One theory is that it was a Saxon called Coffer. And another tree appears to have taken root in the name of Lichfield. In fact, not just one, but many. The old Celtic name meant grey wood. The Saxons added the field to make it field of the grey wood or grey trees. Another notable field
Sheffield.
is Sheffield, the
Home of Def
field
Leppard.
next to the river Sheaf. Sheaf itself means to divide or separate. For example, to
Sheffield
be
then?
ashiaf in Old English was to be expelled. The river acted as a boundary between territories. Yorkshire's rivers feature heavily in its place names, actually. We already heard about Doncaster's Don, into which the Sheaf runs, incidentally, but also the name of Leeds flows from the River Aire, albeit indirectly. Its Celtic name, Landensis, meant people of the fast-flowing river.
Yeah, that's
By the
cool.
time the Anglo-Saxon monk, the Venerable Bede, was taking notes, it had become Loidis. And Kingston
Loidis.
upon Hull, commonly known as just Hull, is named after the river there, which is called the Hull, either from the Celtic for
Where's
muddy,
Kingston come
which
from?
it flipping is,
Kings?
or the Old Norse for
sure.
deep, which it presumably also is. Old Norse is the language of the
So what I'm hearing is you can't ford a hole. I'm sorry, I'll try to stop.
by the way, plenty more on them to come. The Kingston bit of Kingston upon Hull literally means King's Place or
I had a
King's
feeling.
Estate.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
king in question is Edward I, who, according to legend, was chasing a hare in the area one day and fell in love with it. The area, not the hare. So,
Okay. He had me there. I was like,
How many of you believe that he was in love with a rabbit? I'm sitting there going,
I'm sure they didn't.
I don't know. You know, the way he said that was daggone convincing.
Yeah, it definitely was.
I sweat a little for that. Like, England, you didn't tell us about the king in love with the rabbit. I don't remember that nursery rhyme as a
Hair. You loved hair.
kid. Was it hair?
It's hair.
the area one day and fell in love with it. The area, not the hare. So, he had it for his own. The area, not the hare. And the tiny
goodness.
North Yorkshire city of Ripon perhaps also
Ripon.
gets its name from the nearby waters.
Had a
Its
feeling.
earliest recorded name is In Ripon, but
In
no one knows
Ripon.
precisely what that meant. One theory is that it
No.
means at the river bank, and that's backed up by its location near where two rivers meet. But I'm
Okay.
actually more convinced by the theory that it's named after the Ripper, who were an Anglian tribe. Now, arguably England's worst watery place name belongs to the similarly small city of Ely, which means
Ely.
Eel Island.
Ew.
Yes, Ely is thought to get its name from the fact
Don't like
it's
eels.
a bit Ely. And on the
It's a
south
bit
coast,
Ely.
Portsmouth is so called because it had a port
Portsmouth,
at the
Ohio,
mouth
too.
of a river. Although a famous old document called the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle claims that Portsmouth was actually named after a Saxon called Port, which is a slightly less boring explanation, I suppose. And the
More
equally
interesting.
mouthy Plymouth sits at the mouth of the river Plym. Plym perhaps simply comes from the Anglo-Saxon for plum, so I suppose I could have mentioned this one in the tree section too. Another watery one, perhaps
Hold
the
up.
wet.
Okay.
How many freaking rivers do you have? Good Lord.
A ton.
I mean, you're an island already, which is still weird. I still don't get that.
Mhm.
That's still just bizarre.
And then you have so many rivers running through the island.
I mean, yeah, which is, not that uncommon, right? But still, I know there's this many of them.
Mhm.
I know there's many more, but I already knew of quite a few of them. But all these that he's
Mhm.
mentioning, well, most of them, I didn't. So, how many rivers do you have?
Wettest of them all is, of
Was it
course, the
moist?
city of Bath, which
Ah,
is named after the Roman
Roman
baths
baths.
that were there.
I
The
knew
Romans
one.
called it Aquae Sulis, meaning waters of Sulis. Apparently, Sulis was a local goddess of water and healing. The
Okay.
Anglo-Saxons simplified
Bathan.
things by just calling it Bathan or Baths. The
That's
nearby
easier.
city of Wells has a similarly literal liquid-related name. Its Old English name was Wella, and it refers to the 3 wells dedicated to St Andrew there.
That's
Now,
cool.
while we're in the vicinity, we should bring up
Makes
Bristol, whose name
Yeah. Okay.
Full attention here, Natasha. Full attention.
Oh,
Not like you haven't been paying attention, but
I have been paying
hyper-focus.
attention.
I
I
know you
care
have
about
been.
all of these places.
Hyper focus.
I'm just really interested. Talk to me about the Bristolians. Remember what they said about Bristols? Never mind. It's related to Manchester.
is somewhat water adjacent. Quite literally, it's thought to mean assembly place at the bridge. At one point, it was just Bridgestow. However, the theory is that the name changed because of a quirk of the local accent. Supposedly, folk in the area had a habit of pronouncing W's as L's, a bit like some people now say gill instead of girl or bottle instead of bottle. Now,
Sounded the
Bridgestow
same to me.
really did have a W.
Sorry, did that sound any different to you?
No, it didn't.
To the American ear, both pronunciations of bottle sounded the same. Let's see if that's
Of
correct.
his, yes.
Bottle instead of bottle.
I
Some
didn't
people
rewind enough.
now say gill instead of girl, or bottle instead of bottle. Now,
I heard the same.
Bridgestow
yeah.
really did have a W at the end, but it's thought that
It is,
fancy
isn't it?
folk, keen not to seem ignorant, may have overcorrected that W into a L, even though it was never meant to be a L in the first place.
Interesting.
Thus, with a bit of laziness thrown in around the middle, you get from Bridgestow to
Bristol.
Bristol. One last wet one is way up in Liverpool,
one.
which is actually a comparatively new name. It was first recorded in the
Is
12th
it?
century, so after the Norman conquest.
Okay.
Only in the UK, really, you know. A new name in the 12th century.
Mhm. It's so new.
I was only 3 years old in the 12th century, so, I mean, whatever. Just saying.
The pool bit is thought to refer to a muddy tidal creek that perhaps no longer exists there. And the liver? Well, maybe it was shaped a bit like a liver? Sorry, I don't know, actually. I
Really?
couldn't find a good explanation for that one.
Really?
Now, before we get on to the Viking
Okay.
and Norman
my favorite.
nomenclature, we need to sweep up some more Anglo-Saxon stuff, because there's a really common place name suffix or group of suffixes that we haven't talked about yet. You see, when the Angles and Saxons felt one of their territories was under threat, usually from the Vikings I just mentioned, they would build their own little fortifications that they called burhs. And the locations of these forts are preserved in the place names ending burh, borough, bruh, and berry. The city of Canterbury was the burh of the Cantii, what the Romans called the people of Kent, although the twist in the Canterbury tale is that it was the Jutes who built the fortification there, not the Angles nor the Saxons,
Well,
although the
interesting.
term Anglo-Saxon actually refers to all three groups, and more, in fact. Salisbury played host to another Anglo-Saxon burh. The Salis bit, though, which we pronounce so apathetically now, is something of a mystery. It's thought to potentially have the same root as the Sarum in the name of the astonishing nearby historical site of Old Sarum. Indeed, at one point, Salisbury was called New Sarum. Where that Sarum comes from, nobody knows. Another city that's thoroughly burrowly is
Well, I mean, I'm surprised you know half of this stuff because of the fact of how old it is.
I know.
I am really impressed with this. His brain is monstrously big, right?
Mhm.
But no, I'm really impressed with this video, and I'm trying to take it all in. I'm gonna have to watch this one a couple times. I pride myself in what I've learned from doing this show, and but the fact that you know any of this, considering how old you know everything is just incredibly
Yeah,
awesome.
that
It's
the names
impressive.
can be taken back and broken down.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Well before the
Mhm.
12th century.
Peterborough. In fact, the locals for a time just called it borough, but eventually realised that that wasn't specific enough. So they extended it to Peterborough in honour of the monastery around which the protective walls had been built. A monastery dedicated to none other than
St. Peter?
Peter.
That's a
Once
good
the
guess.
Anglo-Saxons left behind their colourful pantheon of pagan gods and converted to Christianity, they took to their new faith with gusto, and the Peter in Peterborough is just one holy hint at that. Another one is in the name of St. Albans. It's named after the very
I haven't heard of
first
this.
British saint, St. Alban, who was martyred there in what the Romans had named Verulamium. He was executed in the 3rd or 4th century for becoming a Christian, a conversion that the Romans would not that long after rather hypocritically make themselves. The city of Westminster also has obvious ecclesiastical links. The minster in question is the abbey that remains there today. The west part may well have been to contrast it with St. Paul's to the east. But hiding its holy history just a little bit better is the Lancashire city of Preston. You'll recognise the ton bit, the Anglo-Saxon settlement suffix, but Preston is specifically thought to be the settlement of the priest or priests. An abbey was set.
Really?
That makes sense.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Would never have known any of this if we hadn't turned this video on today.
No, we sure wouldn't have. Let us know if you're learning along with us.
Up there by St. Wilfrid. Right, we're making some good progress, aren't we? Let's keep going. The priests of Preston were not the only people to get a place named after them. In fact, the Anglo-Saxons made a bit of a habit of it. Birmingham is named after a fella called Bjorma. That's where the Birm bit comes from. The ing bit is an Anglo-Saxon element meaning the people of, and the ham, also from Old English, an ancestor of our word home, means homestead.
That's
so
right,
Birmingham
okay.
means homestead of the people of Bjorma. It was the home of Bjorma's tribe, the Bjormingas. Also in the West Midlands,
Okay.
Wolverhampton has
Ooh, I'm
nothing to
curious
do
about
with
this one.
wolves. It's thought to be named after a lady.
I know.
You know how disappointed I am?
Really thought it was about wolves.
I didn't think it was, but I wanted it to be. You know?
Yeah.
I really want it to be about wolves.
But it's not wolves. It's
I mean, he
wolver.
knows what I'm thinking. He's like, it's not wolves, stop it. He's like, nope, that ain't it. Okay. He's like, I'm talking to you Americans.
Also in the West Midlands, Wolverhampton has nothing to do with wolves.
Dang it.
It's thought to be named after a lady called Wulfrun, who was granted the land by Ethelred the Unready. If so, that makes it the only English city named after a woman. Although there is a
Let's just take a moment.
Very nice.
I'm going to wind that back because I think I'm interrupting his point.
If so, that makes it the only English city named after a woman. Although there is a theory that Ely is named after the famously female St. Athelthryth.
Hang on, we're not eels.
Let's hope it is. Anyway, Wulfrun's new land
Better.
included a place called Llantorn, meaning something like
Llantorn.
high farm. Her name, plus that, gave Wulfrune Llantorn, which in the 1,000 years since has just become Wolverhampton. Back
It's a little
down on
bit
the
easier.
south coast, the city of
Much
Brighton
easier.
and Hove
Brighton!
used to be taken in two parts. The Brighton bit was originally Bjorthelm's Toon, or Bjorthelm's Farm.
Okay.
Bjorthelm is thought to have been a person, perhaps named for his bright helmet. The much
Okay.
longer name, Brighthelmstone, was actually in use until as recently as the 19th century. The Hove bit of Brighton
Wow.
That is actually soon for you guys.
Mhm.
That's like even soon for us.
That is.
Hey! Well, that's a big change.
Mhm.
and Hove is, I'm afraid, yet another mysterious one. It's perhaps from the Old English hofer, meaning courtyard. The
I really
German
wanted to know that,
Hof
actually.
means the same thing now. Okay, hold on to your feathered hats because we're off to Nottingham next, where I suspect the tales of Robin Hood would have been somewhat less romantic had they gone with the city's original name. Nottingham
was
has
it?
not always been Nottingham.
What was it?
It used to be Snottingham.
What?
That's right.
What? No.
That was
Stop it.
awful.
That's hilarious. Is he serious?
Awful.
And that's disgusting font. Snottingham.
Maybe people had a lot of allergies there.
Maybe. Hold on, really? Is he just doing that thing where he's messing with me again?
Has not always been
No
Nottingham.
way.
It used to be Snottingham.
Ew.
That's right, it was named after a fellow called
really?
Snot, and specifically means homestead of the followers of Snot. There's that ing again. These are Snot's people. It is a city of Snot. Snotty, snotty, Nottingham. It perhaps isn't the association with nasal discharge, though, that meant Snottingham lost its S. More likely, the Normans just struggled with that sn sound.
So it
And
is with the Nottingham.
lucky for the city that they did.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Viking time, because while we're in Nottingham, we're in one of the so-called 5 boroughs of the Danelaw, the massive chunk of England that the Norse invaders seized
Derby.
from the Anglo-Saxons. To this day, you can see where the Vikings were just by looking at the names of the places. Close to Nottingham is the city of Derby, another of the 5 boroughs, and more prestigiously, my hometown, which
Yeah.
we used to spell in a way that actually fits with how British people say it.
You did. Oh, we gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I can't stand the fact that that's pronounced with an A when it should be spelled
Written
with an A. Because it drives me crazy and I have to tell my brain, don't say Derby, Natasha. Say
Mhm.
Derby.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I'm actually excited about that. I said we
My
gotcha.
hometown,
Sorry.
which we used to spell in a way that actually fits with how British people say it. The B in Derby is a classic Scandinavian suffix. It's fairly generic. It means anything from farm to settlement
A lot
to
of things
village.
mean that.
So let's just say place. And
It
in
does.
Derby's case, it means place of the deer. It
Oh.
replaced the Anglo-Saxon Northworthy, which I rather like. But anyway, other Viking B places include Whitby, Grimsby and
Okay.
Selby. However, Derby's the only one to have achieved city status so far. As important as Derby and Nottingham were to the Danes, they were nothing compared to their beloved capital of York, the development of the name of which is satisfyingly organic. The Celts called it something along the lines of Iborus, which the Romans
Iborus.
adapted into their name, Iboracum. Both meant place of the yew tree. However, when the Anglo-Saxons
Okay.
came to adapt that, they
Well,
got
we
their
did that.
translation a little bit wrong and called it Jorforbich, place of the wild boar. The
What?
Vikings then put their spin on that and called the place Jorvik. But after
Jorvik.
they left, the locals struggled with that V. To the
Your
people
name.
who remained, a V was the same as a U. So they likely pronounced it along the lines of Yoraweek. And from there, you
Oh.
basically are already at
Now that's
There you
cool.
go.
That's
now, further
neat.
north, Durham wasn't actually
Durham.
in the Danelaw, but it appears to have been close enough for Old Norse to have influenced the name. It used to be called Dunelm or Dunholm, a hybrid name combining the Anglo-Saxon for hill, dun, and the Scandinavian word holm, meaning island or sticky out
Okay.
bit of land. It reflects the fact that it's on a hill almost completely surrounded by the River Wear. Over the centuries, the Ham became anglicised and the name morphed into Durham. While we're on the Wear, let's follow it up to Sunderland, a city with an unusual story to tell.
Ooh.
So you know how if we say something is ripped asunder, we're saying that it has been detached.
We don't really say that in America.
No, we don't.
No.
It's not
But I mean, I've
typically,
heard it,
Mhm.
but no, we don't really say it. Sorry.
From something else. Well, that idea gives Sunderland its name too. It is land that has been in some way sundered from somewhere else. The leading theory is that it refers to the fact the land was granted to a group of monks living on the opposite side of the river.
Oh, okay.
Hence,
That's cool.
the Wear sundered it from them. I really like that one. Now
Yeah,
let's
that's
take the
neat.
short trip to Newcastle, where
Newcastle.
the name requires rather less explaining. It means New Castle. It's finally time for the promised Norman nomenclature, the nomenclature, because
it?
William the Conqueror's lot bloody loved a castle. They couldn't get enough of them. Did you know that there was not a single castle in England before the Normans turned up?
No.
But after they arrived, they put them anywhere and everywhere that
Really?
Fascinating.
Did not know this.
Good information to
they
have.
felt a little bit unsafe. The castle in Newcastle was probably new in comparison with the castles the Normans had already built in Durham, York and Richmond to protect against Scottish invaders. The Normans actually didn't generally meddle all that much with England's place names, but on a few occasions they added to them to show off that they were now in charge. For example, the town of Ashby de la Zouche was just called Ashby until the Zouche family took control, and Leighton Buzzard was so called by the Boussard family. But there's only
Weird.
one current city that the Normans renamed in that way, and
Which
it is Milton Keynes. Now
Oh.
there's a bit of a joke, although I think some people think that it's the truth.
Confession. I always thought Milton Keynes was just like an arena because I knew Queen played there. I've seen some concert footage, so I knew the place. Name. Thought it was just an arena, like a stadium.
Well, now we know it's
Yeah.
place.
Well, I've known it for a little while. I still haven't
Right,
seen it though.
Milton Keynes. Now there's a bit of a joke, although I think some people think that it's the truth, that the place is named after a pair of Johns, the poet John Milton and the economist John Maynard
I can
Keynes.
see why you'd think that.
But that is not the case. The Milton bit is a simple bit of Anglo-Saxon. It is a shortening of Middleton, meaning middle
Kate Middleton.
village. All Suttons mean southern village, and all Nortons mean northern village. Anyway, the Keynes bit comes from the Cahaigne family, who came over with our friend Willie the Sea. Wow,
Okay.
just 3 more cities to sweep
wow, that
up,
was
the ones
fast.
I didn't know where else to
I didn't
put.
even notice the
Okay,
count there.
first, Southend
No, I
on
didn't
Sea,
either.
whose simplicity is surely
Southend on
its
the Sea.
strength. The original settlement was at the south end of a village called Prittlewell, and it sits on the sea.
sea?
At the other extreme of England
is
is
interesting.
Carlisle, whose name is perhaps a Roman-Celtic hybrid. It's thought to mean Fort of Lug, who was a Celtic god of skills. The Romans called it Luguvalium. But
Valium.
after the Romans left, the locals translated it back into their local, sadly extinct, form of Celtic, Cumbric, in which it was Caerluel and thence Carlisle. Our final city name comes from another Celtic stronghold way down in Cornwall. It is the tricky to decipher
Is that Truro? I feel like I've heard that, but I don't think I have. Have you?
I don't think I have.
Yeah,
no.
I don't think this is one we've heard.
from another Celtic stronghold way
Or seen.
down in Cornwall. It is the tricky to decipher Truro.
Truro.
This name might come from the Cornish, another Celtic language, Triveru, meaning 3 rivers. But
Okay.
maybe not. It might be from another lost term, meaning place of turbulent waters. We don't know. The mystery remains.
I like
The
these.
Celtic languages
honesty.
have so much more to offer in terms of place names. That is why I have limited this video to just England. Wales and Scotland have their own stories to tell.
I wonder how many times I'd have to watch that to memorize all of it. And I really want to see him do Wales and Scotland too.
Yes.
Big
The-
time.
very fascinating.
I think
to
he
learn
will.
those.
Looking through this, I saw that he actually has a video for all the states of the U.S.
Mm,
The names, origins.
that'd be nice to watch.
That was cool. First of all, again, like I said, the fact that you even have any, I mean, obviously there wasn't information to every single one, but
Mhm.
doggone close, right?
Yeah.
Speculation's also fun. I enjoy it.
Mhm.
But no, the fact that you have all the information you do is really impressive. And a few questions for you. Did you know about your city? Did you learn with us? We've asked that several times, but I'm asking again because I want to know. Anything surprise you? Everything surprised me. None of it.
Exactly.
Knew
I mean, it
none of
was
it.
really interesting how many of the endings
Yeah,
meant town, settlement, farm,
yeah.
kind of all the same thing, but they changed them slightly.
I still want to go fording. Can we make that into a verb?
Yeah, we can go 40.
If you guys liked this episode, please hit the like button. And consider subscribing to the channel. It is free to do so. I enjoyed this. I thought it was really cool. A lot of information. I want to be able to do a video like this someday where I can just spout out all this.
Remember it all and
Info.
be able to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Until then, as always, please love like Jess.
And be as strong as Tyson.
Bye.